Hey there everyone, what is going on? My little squidlets are turning into full-blown squids before my very eyes. All you beginner riders are growing up, you've completed basic rider training and earned your endorsement, and you've been grinding out thousands of miles on your Ninja 400 while you hone your fundamentals, but now what? Once you've determined you're no longer a beginner rider, what should your next goals be as a motorcyclist? Well, that's what we are talking about in today's episode of Intermediate Cube, Yammy Noob. Let's get into it. For many beginner riders, you're going to ease into riding gradually. You'll probably stick to the same local roads close by to where you live, where you can take your time getting used to riding. Because if your prior experience is strictly limited to the MSF course, the chances are riding a motorcycle on public streets will be completely foreign to you. So to mitigate the risks associated with your very first foray into riding, you'll probably gravitate towards the same routes that have less traffic, lower speed limits, and fewer obstacles. But once you move on from being a beginner, it becomes essential to deviate from your normal routes and ride some new roads and go on longer rides. This could be taking a day trip to a city a few towns over, or you'll experience new roads that will test your perception and riding ability. Riding in new environments will force you to break out of your riding habits and routine and really put your skills to the test as you navigate new terrain. Going for longer rides is also a good way to test your endurance as a rider. You'll learn your limits for fatigue and comfort and see just how many miles that fragile butt of yours can take. Seeing new sights on the back of a motorcycle is really one of the greatest ways to experience life. Going for long rides can allow you to reach some otherwise inconveniently located fun and twisty roads, which will then test your skills as a rider even further. Being able to control your bike from stoplight to stoplight in suburban traffic is one thing, but seeing how you're able to finesse your machine in twisties is a whole other story. And lastly, going for longer rides on your motorcycle will allow you to recognize any shortcomings your bike may have that are maybe becoming otherwise unrecognizable when you're only riding for up to an hour or less around town. Becoming aware of these can incentivize you to make some upgrades, and that brings us to our next point. For beginner riders, I typically recommend holding off on modifying or upgrading your bike. I see it all the time. A new motorcyclist is really excited about customizing their bike and making it their own, but they spend more time with it in pieces in the garage instead of riding the damn thing. Because more often than not, a beginner motorcyclist is also a beginner mechanic, so a lot of times they're putting on some mods or upgrades will become a far more treacherous experience than they'd previously expect. Or they buy a bike, immediately spend $1,000 on mods and upgrades just to drop the bike in a parking lot and break their expensive aftermarket turn signals. I always say the only thing a new rider needs is good tires, gas, and seat time. The mods can always come later. And that's where we're at today. You're no longer a beginner rider, so you can comfortably begin modifying your bike. Once you have that seat time in, you'll not only have a better idea of where you want to invest your money into your bike, and you'll have a decreased risk of dropping it and breaking all your shiny new farkles. You know, it's like wait until after you drop your bike and break your turn signals to then buy the upgraded ones. You don't want to do it in reverse order. It's also important to remember that you will likely not see any return on investment on whatever mods you choose to install on your bike. A slip-on exhaust and a tail tidy is not going to add any value, but it likely won't devalue your bike too much either. But beyond that, any modification you choose to install that makes your bike more unique decreases its appeal to a majority of riders and then lowers the amount of money you should see when you choose to sell it. So be smart with your mods and don't go hog wild, because you'll never see that money again. You know, don't take a perfectly good Ninja 400, install winglets and a tinted windscreen and anodized eBay shorty levers and expect your bike to not immediately lose half of its resale value because it was now clearly owned by a wannabe street squid. But all that being said, some simple, tasteful mods that improve your personal riding experience can be a worthwhile investment as you move on from your beginner era, because it's going to give you some skills to modify later. And whether you're a beginner rider, intermediate rider, or a horseback rider, you'll find something to enjoy in our online motorcycle community over at yammynoob.co. Okay, maybe not the equestrian part, but I guess maybe you never know. Horsepower's horsepower, right? Members enjoy exclusive content that is just too edgy for YouTube. You'll get our super fun, no-holds-barred newsletter, access to our members-only Discord server, and access to live streams with your very own Papa Yam. Plus, members get automatic entries to win our giveaway bikes. Your entries are now pooled, which means you can save them for later and apply to a new giveaway or the current one. They're your entries. Use them when you need it. We've currently got a 2024 Suzuki GSX 8R that I'm having a ton of fun riding around and making content with. So if you like what we do here on the channel, but you want more action, head over to yammynoob.co to see about becoming a member. When you're modifying your bike to make more power, it's important to realize that it will often be cheaper just to sell your bike and get a faster motorcycle as opposed to spending thousands on a full exhaust system, aftermarket air intake, and a tune to make 7 more horsepower. With that being said, something to consider after you're no longer a beginner rider is when you might be ready to move on to a larger or faster bike. There are many many signs to indicate you're ready for a larger motorcycle. If you've been riding for a few seasons and you feel as if you've completely mastered fundamental riding techniques, not the bike, very important distinction there, and you're able to very easily control your motorcycle no matter how aggressive you ride in varying conditions, you might be ready for a bigger bike. If you feel bored when you ride and feel like you're not being challenged, it might be time for a bigger motorcycle as well. But I caution you, you don't want to spend 3 months on your Ninja 400 and rack up 3,000 miles and say, I'm ready for a leader bike. It's not good practice. Because while having a small displacement bike that is forgiving in its inputs is great for learning how to ride, you will probably not continue to progress as a rider until you have a little bit more power at your disposal. That's not to say that a 200 horsepower superbike is the ultimate goal for a street rider, because it really isn't, as so much of that bike's power will never be utilized on the street. But something in the 80 to 100 horsepower range is really great for a second motorcycle if you've got good quantifiable experience. Like I said, you can't be like, I've had this 400cc bike for a year so I can get an R660. If you've only put 1,000 miles on your beginner bike in that first year. You need real seat time and to rack up real miles before it's time to upgrade. My rule of thumb is usually 12 to 18 months or 12 to 18,000 miles. That's what I like to see before you upgrade. Once you move on from your beginner era, you might also realize that you're interested in a different style of motorcycle altogether, in which it would be worth upgrading as well. There's really no way of knowing as a beginner rider with 100% accuracy what type of motorcycle you want to get. Yeah, you can look at them and all, sit them at the dealership, analyze the spec sheets till you're blue in the face, but you won't know until you've actually done real riding with the types of bikes you're into. As a brand new beginner, the whole experience is so new and novel that no matter what bike you're on, you're going to be excited. But as you rack up miles, you might start to realize you don't actually love sport bikes as much as you thought you did. Or you might realize, hey, cruisers actually are slow and boring. Yami was right, and you want to get a naked bike or something. Or you might meet some really cool older men down at the brew pub with some big old adventure bikes and think, hey, I am desperately searching for a feigned sense of adventure as well, and start looking for a middleweight ADV. Or you'll end up like me with the Scrambler that doesn't do anything that great, and you're like, well, this is the bike I've got, so here we go. Yeah, anyways, looking to upgrade from your beginner bike is a natural step as you move into being an intermediate rider. Similarly, once you're no longer a beginner, it might be time to start looking at upgrading some of your gear as well. As a new rider, you probably spent as little as possible to get the necessary safety equipment on your motorcycle, and that's totally understandable. You don't need to get $1,000 a ride to wear for your MSF course when you don't even have an endorsement to ride yet. That's just silly. And hopefully as a new rider, you still bought proper safety rated gear, but as you progress, some of the more inexpensive entry-level stuff might not be cutting it anymore. Inexpensive gear often doesn't stand the test of time as more high-end gear will, and it will also have far fewer comfort features and amenities. So once you've moved past your beginner stage and you're committed to the sport of motorcycling, it might make sense to buy some nicer stuff. You also might be interested in buying more specialized gear as you gravitate towards a more specific style of riding. Beginner gear is often designed to appeal to a broad range of new riders while not being particularly well suited for any one style of riding. For instance, maybe you got a pair of riding shoes as your first pair of motorcycle boots. That's great. They offer far more protection than normal sneakers. But if you're looking to do more sporty ridings on twisty canyon roads, you'll be much better off buying a real deal pair of motorcycle boots that will offer greater protection at the expense of a more specific purpose-driven design. Similarly, maybe you bought the cheapest DOT-rated full-face helmet you could buy, and then once you're ready to invest in more gear, you will not regret buying a safer DOT and ECE-rated helmet that will also come with way more features. It'll have better noise reduction, a softer liner, better venting, so on and so forth. Investing in nicer, more specialized gear will greatly improve your riding experience and your safety. One thing I think you'll probably want to invest in is a hydration pack. If you like doing longer rides, maybe you'll get a touring style jacket. All these things will slowly add up as you develop your sense of riding. The last thing you'll need is to keep learning. Of course, you need to continue learning in your normal riding as you begin to ride more powerful bikes and in varying road conditions. It's imperative you're made engaged with your riding and reflect on your skills and think about where you can improve. If you ever have a close call, like coming into a corner too hot, or having a target fixation in a turn, or getting cut off by a minivan at an intersection, don't just breathe the sigh of relief that you avoided catastrophe, but think about the cause and what you could have done differently to avoid these situations. It's interesting. I think as you experience more motorcycling, you tend to get more lucky, quote unquote. And I think the reason for that is because as your skills develop, you start doing things with a sixth sense on the motorcycle. You start to be able to avoid accidents and avoid crashes before they even become a thing. When I was a beginner rider, I had way more close calls and weird situations than I have now because I'm way more experienced and I can think 2 to 3 steps ahead and avoid these situations before they ever happen to me. And beyond continuing to learn and grow in your regular street riding, there's so much you can learn by pursuing continued motorcycle education. We got it real easy here in the States, a little too easy if you ask me. Spend a weekend in a parking lot and you're endorsed to ride whatever bike you want. The American licensing system is directly responsible for MSF to Turbo Busa pipeline. But just because the further motorcycle education isn't mandatory, it's something I'd highly recommend. You will get a massive ROI spending on your education and knowledge. The Motorcycle Safety Foundation, who put on the basic rider course that many American riders take to learn basic skills to get their motorcycle endorsement on their license, also puts on the advanced rider course that, quote, builds on your basic skills as well as helps with personal risk assessments, includes a fast-paced classroom segment with several fun interactive activities to improve perception and hazard awareness. Range exercises enhance both basic operating skills and crash avoidance skills. Improving your braking and cornering finesse is emphasized. There are also intensive multi-day courses like the California Superbike School or Yamaha Champ School, who describes themselves as our coaching curriculum builds upon 2 overarching principles, part of our champions' habits. 1, how best riders in the world ride, and 2, how a modern motorcycle is designed to be ridden. We aim to shortcut your learning curve, make new riders excellent, and make veteran riders even better. I've actually done both the California Superbike School, 2 weekends of the Yamaha Champ School, and the Yamaha Champ School Racer program. I've done plenty of private coaching as well. Seriously, investing in yourself for your education and knowledge of how to ride a motorcycle is one of the best ROIs you can get. Yamaha Champ School curriculum includes trail braking, visual habits, traction studies, tire and suspension loading, and so much more. And again, I did the Yamaha Champ School after I'd already been racing and doing track days for years, and I still learned and still progressed by doing it. So even if you think you're some big bad rider, you can always learn more. There is always someone faster and better than you that you can learn from. If you have a local racetrack in your area, they'll also offer courses to teach you the skills you need to begin riding on track, most of which will make you an all-around better motorcyclist in general. Because when you're confident and comfortable operating the bike at track speeds, road riding is going to feel really easy. And that's the biggest takeaway. Even though you're no longer a beginner rider, there's still so much to learn as you continue riding, whether it be on street, on track, or even off-road. I highly recommend doing some adventure-style riding or some gravel road riding to get familiar with low traction situations. Again, it's gonna make it when you go back on street that everything is just really easy. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope I was able to provide some insight on how you can keep stepping up your game as you continue motorcycling. If you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want even more exclusive content, check out yammynoob.co to sign up to our newsletter and consider becoming a member in our online community. Thanks again for watching. I will see you later. Fact: it would take 19 minutes to fall to the center of the earth. You'd also likely melt. Goodbye. I'm like a bird, I wanna fly away. I don't know where my soul is. I don't know where my home is. Da 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 da. I'm like a bird. I want to fly away. I don't know where my soul is. Oh, hey. You're still here. Man, this is awkward. You should, you should keep watching Yammy Noob.